My expectations were low, and yet I'm still disappointed. This is Manhunt 2. I always heard it was worse than the first, but I still thought I would enjoy it more than I did. Released in 2007 by Rockstar Games, it is the sequel to one of the most controversial games ever released. I haven't played this one before. All I knew going into it was it wasn't as good as the first, and it was censored way more than the original. Is this because the content is more messed up? Was the censorship the reason this one isn't looked upon as fondly? Let's find out. In my video about Manhunt 1, I didn't want to go over the controversy and the censorship, as I wanted to focus on the actual game. With the sequel, it's impossible not to talk about it because it noticeably affects the game. The censorship is bloody ridiculous. I wouldn't say anything in this game is any worse than in the first. They are both dark, grim and violent as each other. So why did the sequel get hammered so much harder? I think the powers that be had it out for Rockstar at that time. Anything they made was going to get scrutinised harder. This really hurt the game for me. Let's take the executions. In the first game, the longer you held down the button, the more violent your kill would be, and the bigger risk of you getting caught. The more violent, the more points you would get, leading to a better score. The ratings board thought this was fine, but for the sequel they thought this was awful. You can't reward people for being more violent. So they had to get rid of the score system, which just ruins the point of the execution system. Why put yourself at risk for going for the more violent kill if you don't get anything for it? If this was such an issue, why was it allowed in the first game, which you can still buy on online stores, but you can't buy the second one? It just doesn't make sense. To make matters worse, Rockstar was forced to cover up the animations with a bunch of effects, like making the screen red, blurry and static, which kind of ruins them because you can't see what's actually happening. The uncensored versions are easy enough to find online. I don't think they're any more brutal than the first game. You can still kind of make out what is happening, and using your imagination to fill in the blanks, you can make them seem worse than they actually are. The censorship just feels totally unnecessary, but to be honest, I don't think this would have been a great game even if it was uncensored. Like with the story, it's definitely not as strong as the first games, even though there is more of a plot. In the first game you were forced to make a snuff film. The more violent you are, the better the film will be. It's simple and works to set up the gameplay. With the sequel it's more complicated and doesn't gel well with the gameplay. This time around you play as Daniel Lamb, a mental patient who has lost his memories. With the help of Leo Casper, another patient, they break out of a mental hospital to figure out Daniel's past. A fine setup, but I find amnesia stories are either hit or miss. They're very reliant on the reveal of the character's past being interesting, or some twist landing changing how you view the story. Unfortunately for Manhunt 2, it crashes in both instances. At the start of the story, Leo will guide Daniel to his house, where Daniel's left some drugs for himself to help restore his memory. Leo informs him that someone called The Project did this to both of them and they need to be stopped. This will take them on a breadcrumb trail where they find the clue that leads them to the next clue. Obviously whilst they are doing this, they are being hunted down by bounty hunters, because as Leo says, it's a manhunt. Just in case you forgot what game we're playing. I'm going to go into spoilers because it's hard to talk about the story without it, even though the twist is really fucking obvious. Go to this timecode to skip. Through bits and pieces, we learn that Daniel was in charge of a mind experience, similar to MK Ultra, where you could turn people into killers after hearing the right phrases. They accomplished this by using the Pikmin bridge. This is a brain implant that holds the personality of a killer inside it. Once active, the host will have no memory of what the killer's personality did. Wish I could have something like this for work. The experiment was going to be stopped unless they produced results, and for some smooth brain reason Daniel thought he would be the test subject. He does this because his family is in debt and needs the experiment to work so he can get paid. It works, but the bridge malfunctions and the killer personality is let out permanently, forcing Daniel to have a split personality. The killer personality is Leo, of course. Leo wants complete control of Daniel's body, which leads to the two different endings, one where Daniel beats Leo in his mind, and the other where Leo wins. First off, the Leo twist. I can't imagine anyone didn't see this coming. There is a lack of misdirection. During the gameplay, Leo just disappears, even though he's right next to Daniel in the cutscene. He's also constantly talking to you. They never said up if he's on a radio, so I assumed it wasn't, because this happens right after you exit your cell. He also encourages you to kill when you are starting execution. Also, no one interacts with him during the cutscenes. They will say stuff like, "You talking to Leo?" even though he's right fucking there. Also, Leo's last name's Casper, like the friendly ghost, because he's not real. If they wanted this twist to land, Leo needed to be there during the gameplay. I'm not saying he has to kill anybody, just physically be there to justify him talking to you. Maybe he could activate a switch in a level, or help you open a door. Then they could reveal it was Daniel doing these things. This would have made it less obvious. They try to throw you off in levels where you play as Leo, but Daniel disappears then, so the same logic applies. It doesn't help that none of the characters are likeable. Leo is a psycho, that is the point, but Daniel isn't much better. You have a flashback where he's arguing with his wife, she doesn't want him to go through with the experiment, as she doesn't like what it's turned him into. Later, Leo will kill her. You're supposed to be like, oh, poor Daniel, but he could have prevented this. When Daniel has his first few kills, he'll throw up afterwards, which I like because it shows he's not a natural killer. But this clashes with the gameplay because he did it in the most violent way possible. You could say this is to show Leo taking over, but Daniel is the one in control at the moment. This is why he doesn't work as well as James Earl Cash. In the first game, you didn't know much about him, other than the fact he was on death row, so him being violent could be his character. He is a blank slate who doesn't talk. We learn about Daniel and how he isn't violent, so the narrative and gameplay constantly clash. It feels like we should have played as Leo for the gameplay, or maybe you switch depending on how violent you were being during the levels. It doesn't gel here like in the first game. The Manhunt signature style doesn't really gel here either. The first game looked like it was being shot for VHS, where static scanlines and cutscenes were shot from security cameras. This was because of the story. You were being watched and filmed on cameras for the director's snuff film. It really worked for that game. The same style is in the sequel, but for no real reason other than it's a Manhunt game. You aren't being watched or recorded, so why do we have this style here? I was hoping the project has been watching you the entire time, but that doesn't happen. I respect they didn't do the same plot as the first game again, someone else is making a snuff film, but they needed something to justify using the same style here. There is a video Daniel watches that's important to the plot which might explain the VHS look, but it's not a strong connection. I do like the use of the colour red and the inverted colours here, along with the static look. The colour ties into the video he watches. I feel like they should have leaned more into the use of colour instead of the VHS look, just so this game had its own style. Then again, this gets used during the executions, and it's overdone there, so maybe it's a good thing they didn't. Which brings us to the gameplay, which I was putting off talking about because it's Manhunt. Not much has been changed or improved, it's Manhunt again. You sneak around areas trying to kill everyone, except you can climb on or over obstacles, don't get too excited. Knocking on walls to lure enemies is still the way to go. The inventory is the same, you can still carry small, medium and large weapons. You need a weapon to perform executions. They have added executions from above, which I think I used twice in my whole playthrough. If you're above an enemy, you can perform an execution immediately by jumping down and killing them. They have also added environmental executions. A skull will appear on your radar. If you sneak up behind an enemy when they are close, you will use the environment to kill them. Which is cool, but they can be abused. This one where you push enemies into a grinder can be reused. Enemies who notice the blood on it stop to look, so you can push them in as well. And that brings me to the hand-to-hand combat. It's the same on paper, you should try to avoid it. But for me, here, it was a lot more winnable than in the first game. Enemies could be stun locked fairly easy by mashing light attack, which kinda goes against the whole stealth thing the series is known for. Just like in the first game, Manhunt 2 decides to ditch the sneaky levels for gun focus levels, which isn't the game's strong suit. I like the gunplay, it works. There's just a bit too much of it. Guns feel the same as they did in the original. Automatic weapons are still OP. It's still best to get close to the enemy so you can lock on to their head and blow it off. The headshots might be my favourite thing in the game. Absolutely gnarly. They get obliterated, chunks go everywhere, and their head gets left with a massive hole. So satisfying to pull off, and it isn't covered up with a censorship blur, so you can actually see what's happening. There are no gimmicks in the level like the first game's crane or escort sections. The only parts are ones where a helicopter is in the sky and you're forced to run. I didn't mind these as a change of pace. There are still obstacles in some levels where you need the right weapon to get past. I like these two, my favourite being how you have to chop off an enemy's head so you can use it to get someone to unlock the door. It's neat. The AI feels slightly better than the first, but not by much. They will still turn around for no apparent reason, or not investigate noises properly. The execution button is still the same as the attack button, so I would swing when I didn't want to. There isn't much to say, it's just the first one again, and I think that's why I'm so disappointed. I feel like there was a lot that could have been done to improve on the Manhunt gameplay, but they didn't really do anything. Graphically the game looks good, more realistic than the first, but I still think the more retro graphics of the first give it more charm than this one. I also don't think the game looks that good for 2007. The 360 and PS3 are kicked off by that point, so it's strange it wasn't on those consoles. I feel like Rockstar just wanted to get this game out so they could move on, instead of making something they were actually passionate about. Ultimately, I didn't really enjoy my time in Manhunt 2. It wasn't a bad time, just not a memorable one. If you want to experience Manhunt, definitely stick with the first one. That one felt like it was trying to say something, whilst this one just feels like another one. Also, that one has Brian Cox. Time to rank it. I'm feeling number 52. Manhunt 2 didn't piss me off as much as Suicide Squad did with its story, so it's above that. But I can't put it above DMC 2 because at least that's memorably bad compared to Manhunt 2. I'm not going to think about Manhunt 2 again after I make this video. Manhunt 2 didn't make me angry, it just made me shrug. I think it's also the fact DMC got better after 2, whilst we were just stuck with this being the last Manhunt game. It's very disappointing. Just like GTA 6 being delayed again. Come on, Rockstar!